addition and subtraction today, and we're going to start off with addition. So I want you to imagine that you have the addition problem 2 plus 5, okay? And that equals something. So I want us to think about and imagine you went apple picking, and while you were there, you picked 2 red apples. And so you have 2 red apples in, maybe your bucket, and then somebody else comes along and they add 5 green apples to your bucket. And they ask you, well, how many apples do we have in total now? Well, you would say, I have 2 red apples and I have 5 green apples. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 total apples now. So 2 plus 5 is equal to 7. 2 apples. Adding 5 to the 2 apples gives me 7 apples. And we can kind of look at this another way too to help you visualize. So let's imagine that we have a number line here. And we're going to make a number line and we're going to start and we're going to count. So let's make some dashes. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we can number them too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And let's go back to our problem of 2 plus 5. So we can use our number line by starting at 2 because that's how many red apples we started with. So I'm going to put my dot right here to show we have 2 red apples. And we see that there were 5 green apples added to our bucket. So I'm going to make on my number line 5 jumps. I'm going to count up 5 and I'm going to see where do I end up at after I've counted 5. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And where have I ended up? Well, I've ended right at 7. And let me show you, let me count these jumps for you just so you really see. So here's our first jump. Okay, here's our second jump. We're plussing. Here's our third jump. Here's our fourth jump. And here's our 5th jump. So look at that. We started at 2. We started at 2. We jumped 5 jumps. Look at that. We added 5 apples. And we have a 7 here. And we have a 7 here. So 2 plus 5 equals 7. And the reason we moved in this direction, so you'll notice we jumped to the right, is because our number was getting bigger. When we are adding something, the number is getting bigger and we move in the right direction on the number line. Let's think about it now from subtraction. Okay, so if addition is adding 2 things together, or more than 2 things, but 2 things in this case, subtraction is taking one number from another number. Okay, so I'm going to draw a little line down here so we don't get confused. Okay, so we're going to pay attention to this side now. So let's write over here. This was addition. Okay, this side is going to be subtraction. Okay, and I want you to think about it. You go apple picking again. But this time, you have 5 red apples. Okay, you have 5 red apples. And then somebody comes along and they eat 2 of your apples. They eat 2 apples. So they go into your bucket and they take 2 of your apples and they eat them because they're really hungry. Well, how many did they take away? They took away 2. So let's take away 2 apples. There. We no longer have those 2 apples because they've been taken away from somebody else. Well, how many apples do we have left? We have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 apples left over. So 5 minus 2 is equal to 3. And let's use our number line again to see if we can visually kind of see what's happening here. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line again. I'm going to do the same thing that we did on this side. I'm going to count starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And let's label them again so we know. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, where are we going to start on this number line? Well, we started with 5 apples. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to say, well, here's where I started. That's how many apples I started with. Okay. And then somebody came and took 2 of my apples. They ate 2 of them. So if our number is getting smaller now, so remember we said over here we moved to the right because our number was getting bigger because we were adding apples to our bucket. Well, now we're taking apples away. So we're going to move this way. We're going to move to the left. And how many apples are being taken away? Well, 2 apples are being taken away. So I need to jump 2 spaces. So let's do that. There's 1. There's 2. And we'll label it just so you see 1 and 2. 2 jumps. And you'll notice, where do I end up? I end up right at 3. Right at 3. So 5 minus 2 is 3, which is exactly what we had up here. 5 minus 2 is 3.